Before we start, I would like to ask you to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell to be the first to experience these bone-chilling stories.
In the blistering heat of the summer sun, my family and I embarked on a long-awaited vacation. Our destination was a remote cabin nestled deep within the woods. Little did we know that this serene getaway would soon become a nightmare beyond imagination. Upon our arrival, the oppressive heat was suffocating. We hurriedly unloaded our belongings and sought refuge inside the cool cabin. As the evening approached, a strange unease settled over the place. The once comforting sounds of nature now seemed ominous and foreboding. Night fell, casting an inky blackness over the surroundings. The cabin's aged wooden walls creaked with every gust of wind, adding to our growing sense of unease. We gathered around the crackling fireplace, attempting to lighten the heavy atmosphere with laughter and games. But as the night wore on, an unexplainable dread seeped into our hearts. Shadows danced ominously across the walls, their elongated forms taking grotesque shapes. The once familiar sounds of the forest transformed into eerie whispers that seemed to penetrate our souls. Unable to shake off the growing unease, I retreated to my bedroom, desperate for a moment of solitude. The silence of the room was deafening, broken only by the distant hoots of an owl. I lay in bed, my mind plagued by a sense of impending doom. It was then that I noticed a subtle change in the room. The air grew dense, suffocating, as if a malevolent presence had infiltrated the space. Beads of sweat formed on my forehead. Despite the chill in the room, I felt trapped, as if an invisible force was constricting around me. As I struggled to make sense of the situation, a low whisper pierced the silence. It was barely audible, yet it sent shivers down my spine. The voice seemed to come from all directions, whispering unintelligible words that chilled me to the core. Paralyzed with fear, I strained my ears to catch any semblance of meaning in the haunting whispers. It was then that the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They echoed through the room, resonating within the depths of my mind. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. The oppressive silence was shattered by a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the cabin. Panic engulfed me as I fumbled for a source of light, anything to dispel the suffocating darkness. As the light flickered back to life, I found myself face to face with a horrifying sight. A spectral figure hovered above me, its ghastly visage contorted in agony. Its hollow eyes pierced through my soul, and I could feel an icy grip tightening around my heart. With each passing moment, the apparition grew more solid, its presence suffusing the room with an otherworldly malevolence. It spoke in a chilling voice, its words dripping with venomous intent. It told a tale of tragedy, of lives lost in these very woods, forever trapped in a realm between the living and the dead. Terror seized me as the ghostly figure drew closer, its ethereal fingers reaching out to touch my trembling body. I could feel its icy breath against my skin, a tangible reminder of its unearthly existence. In that moment, I knew I was in the presence of pure evil. With a surge of adrenaline, I broke free from its icy grip and sprinted towards the door. The cabin seemed to warp and twist around me, the walls contorting in grotesque shapes. As I reached the threshold, I dared a glance back, only to find the cabin empty, devoid of any supernatural presence. Gasping for breath, I stumbled into the safety of the moonlit clearing. The oppressive heat of the summer night was now a welcome respite from the horrors I had witnessed. I collapsed onto the ground, my heart still pounding in my chest. As the first rays of dawn broke through the horizon, I knew our vacation had taken a dark turn. The serene beauty of the woods had been tainted by an ancient evil, lurking just beyond the threshold of our cabin. From that day forward, I would forever carry the memory of that horrifying summer vacation, a chilling reminder of the terrors that can lurk within the most idyllic of settings. Sunset cast long shadows across the desolate landscape as the sweltering heat of summer engulfed the small town. An eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. It was during this oppressive summer that I experienced the most terrifying ordeal of my life. I remember it vividly. The stifling air clung to my skin as I walked along the deserted streets, the scorching asphalt burning the soles of my bare feet. The town appeared deserted, as if everyone had fled in fear of some unknown horror. But I pressed on, driven by an inexplicable curiosity and a nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a blanket of darkness descended upon the town. The streetlights flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows that danced menacingly on the cracked pavement. A sense of foreboding enveloped me, urging me to turn back, but an unrelenting curiosity pushed me forward. I found myself drawn to an old, dilapidated house at the edge of town. Its once vibrant paint had long faded, revealing the weathered wood beneath. The windows were shattered, and the front door creaked ominously on its rusty hinges. Every instinct screamed at me to stay away, but an inexplicable force drew me towards its decaying embrace. As I cautiously stepped inside, a cold gust of wind swept through the house, sending shivers down my spine. The air was heavy with the stench of decay and something far more sinister. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest, but the need to unravel the mysteries of this place compelled me forward. The interior was a haunting maze of dusty corridors and forgotten rooms. Each step I took echoed through the emptiness, reverberating with a haunting resonance. Shadows danced on the walls, their elongated forms contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to follow my every move. In one room, I discovered a collection of worn photographs strewn across a rotting wooden table. The faded faces of a family stared back at me, their eyes filled with a mixture of joy and sorrow. But there was something off about them, something deeply unsettling. The smiles seemed forced, the eyes held a hint of desperation. As I continued my exploration, a chill ran down my spine. I entered a room shrouded in darkness, its atmosphere thick with an otherworldly presence. My breath caught in my throat as I noticed a flickering candle in the corner, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Intrigued and terrified in equal measure, I moved closer to investigate. Suddenly, the candle extinguished, plunging the room into complete darkness. A paralyzing fear gripped me as an unnatural presence made itself known. Whispers echoed through the room, disembodied voices whispering words I couldn't comprehend. Panic welled up within me as a cold, ethereal hand brushed against my cheek, sending a wave of terror through my entire being. In that moment, I knew I had stumbled upon something far more malevolent than I could have ever imagined. The house itself was a vessel for ancient spirits, restless and vengeful. They had awakened from their slumber, lured by the heat of summer, and now sought to claim me as their own. With every ounce of strength I had left, I ran from the haunted house, the spirits' anguished cries echoing in my ears. I didn't look back, fueled by the sheer terror that gripped my soul. I sprinted through the deserted town, feeling their presence still lingering behind me. Eventually, I reached the safety of my own home, the sanctity of its walls a welcome refuge from the horrors that lurked outside. But even now, in the dead of night, I can't escape the haunting memories of that summer. The spirits of that house continue to haunt my dreams, their ethereal whispers a constant reminder of the terror I experienced. And so, as the scorching summer sun beats down on this forsaken town, I warn you to stay away from the haunted house. For within its decaying walls, an unspeakable evil lurks, ready to ensnare the curious and the unwary. Summer may be a time of warmth and joy, but in this forsaken place it harbors a darkness that can never be forgotten. Sand slipped between my toes as I strolled along the deserted beach. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the shoreline. The rhythmic crashing of the waves drowned out the distant sounds of laughter and splashing, leaving only an eerie silence in its wake. I had come to this coastal town for a summer vacation, seeking respite from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Little did I know that my idyllic beach getaway would soon turn into a nightmare beyond comprehension. The first sign of trouble came when I noticed a peculiar figure in the distance. It stood motionless, a black silhouette against the setting sun. Intrigued, I made my way closer, my heart pounding in my chest. As I approached, I realized it was a man, clad in a tattered and torn swimsuit. His hair was wild and unkempt, and his eyes gleamed with a haunting intensity. "Hello?" I called out tentatively. The man turned his head slowly, his gaze piercing through me like a knife. He opened his mouth to speak, but only a guttural moan escaped his lips. Fear gripped me, urging me to run, but curiosity got the better of me. "Are you all right?" I asked, my voice trembling. The man's mouth contorted into a grotesque smile, revealing rows of yellowed teeth. Without warning, he lunged at me, his hands clawing the air. I stumbled backward, tripping over my own feet, and fell onto the sand. As I scrambled to my feet, I caught a glimpse of something glimmering in the man's hand, a rusted knife. Panic consumed me as I sprinted away, my heart pounding in my ears. I dared not look back, afraid of what I might see. The beach, once a sanctuary of tranquility, had transformed into a nightmarish playground of horrors. I sought refuge in a nearby beach house, the only building in sight. The door creaked open as I pushed it, revealing an abandoned interior covered in a thick layer of dust. The air hung heavy with a stale, musty odor. I ventured further inside, my footsteps echoing through the empty rooms. As I explored the house, I became increasingly aware of an unsettling presence. Shadows danced on the walls, their movements defying logic. Whispers echoed in my ears, taunting and mocking me. Every instinct screamed for me to leave, but something held me captive, preventing my escape. Night fell, cloaking the beach in an impenetrable darkness. The moon, once a comforting guide, hid behind a veil of ominous clouds. The sound of waves crashing against the shore grew louder, more aggressive, as if they were chanting a malevolent hymn. I found myself drawn back to the beach, compelled by an invisible force. The sand felt cold beneath my feet, and the air grew thicker with an otherworldly chill. A flickering light caught my attention, a bonfire crackling in the distance. Figures danced around it, their movements jerky and unnatural. Mesmerized, I approached the bonfire, my eyes widening in horror at the sight before me. The figures circling the flames were not human. They were twisted, disfigured creatures, their limbs contorted in unnatural angles. Their eyes glowed with a demonic red hue, fixated on me with a hunger I couldn't comprehend. I turned to run, but it was too late. The creatures lunged at me, their claws tearing into my flesh. Pain seared through my body as I fell to the ground, blood staining the sand beneath me. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was their grotesque forms closing in, their snarls and growls echoing in my ears. I awoke with a start, gasping for breath, drenched in sweat. It took a moment for reality to set in. I was safe, in the comfort of my own bed. The beach vacation had been nothing more than a terrifying nightmare, a figment of my imagination. But the terror I had experienced felt all too real. As the morning light streamed through my window, I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere out there, on a forgotten stretch of beach, a darkness lurked, waiting to consume those foolish enough to wander into its grasp. The memory of that horrifying summer vacation would forever haunt my dreams, a constant reminder of the horrors that lay hidden beneath the surface of our world.